Good morning and welcome to the Leadership in Insurance podcast, otherwise known as the LIP. I'm your host, Alex Bond. I'm very fortunate today to be joined by the guys from Tautona, all the way from South Africa. We've got Philip Cooper and John Holdsworth. Welcome, Jeps. How are you?
Wonderful, awesome, thank you. Superb.
Yeah.
Nice to be on the show. Thank you very much for the invite.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'll tell everyone at home that you've already rubbed it in about the weather.
Yeah, the weather's absolutely wonderful over here at the moment. We're loving it.
Yeah, what I find frustrating is usually I can sort of justify it to myself that we're on different time zones, but you're on the same time zone. You've just a much better climate, so I'm very jealous. So I thought I'd throw it over to you guys, because rather than me make a hash of talking about AI and claims, do you want to just introduce the business and what it is exactly that you guys do?
Yes, absolutely. So Tautona is a hyper-automation company. What that means is we use robotics and artificial intelligence to automate processes. Tautona focuses, Alex, exclusively on the insurance industry, specifically property and casualty. And even within property and casualty, you know, we have a bias towards property-based classes of business, such as homeowner or commercial multiple peril. We also focus very much on claims. And the reason for that is that historically claims have, in the insurance industry, been largely manual and semi-automated and bureaucratic. And there's now a big trend globally, basically, to automate claims. But claims is a really, really difficult problem to solve. And the reason for that, it's not like putting caps on bottles. There's lots of judgment tasks, there's lots of perceptual tasks that require a cognitive capability. And now with the emergence of AI, you know, over the last 2 or 3 years, it's now becoming possible to actually automate, you know, some of these processes. From our perspective, we really focus on 3 very, very key areas of AI. Do what's called intelligent document identification or computer vision. So what we can do is take very, very large documents and using computer vision, we can extract relevant claim information out of those documents. If you take, for example, you know, a complex Lloyds claim, it could be a report from an assessor that's, you know, 30 or 40 pages long. That's got lots of relevant information about the claim. So what would historically have happened in that scenario is a claim adjuster would have read the report, you know, would probably have made some notes. We can now use technology to take that 50-page report and extract all the key information out of that report for further processing. We use machine learning, and that's specifically used for computing loss values, for setting reserve amounts. Again, this is something that's, you know, historically done by a claim adjuster using an Excel spreadsheet, but with machine learning, we're now able to actually automate these tasks. One of the areas where I think we possibly lead the world is in natural language understanding. That's pretty much the holy grail, really, of artificial intelligence. It's been able to have, you know, a conversation or a sensible conversation, you know, with a computer. It's a step beyond natural language processing. And the area where we apply this technology is in coverage analysis, you know, which is the heart of claim processing. It's trying to understand, you know, what is the proximate cause, what are the damages, you know, and do you have coverage, basically, you know, for those damages. Is
that the leap forward that's been the challenge? Because my thing would be, yeah, understanding policy documents, understanding coverage. Is that the leap forward in AI that needed to happen to get to a point where you could understand and decipher language?
Very much so. I mean, that's at the heart of, you know, where most corporates globally want to take, you know, claim automation. I'm sure you've heard all these buzz phrases like touchless claims, Alex, and straight through processing and intelligent triage. So these are all buzzwords that get thrown around all the time. But if you can't understand, you know, what the damage is and whether there's coverage, no, you can't actually. How can you process, a claim unless you understand whether that client has coverage for that loss. And unfortunately, that's a major technical challenge because, if you look, for example, at a homeowner policy, there can be anywhere between 25 and 35 policy documents that are full with all of this legalese. And a claim adjuster would peruse those documents and extract the appropriate clauses out and would think about that and make some decisions and make some telephone calls. But we've now developed effectively an engine that understands policy documents and understands them in context of that specific claim scenario. And those claim scenarios are incredibly complex. I mean, at the end of the day, there's all manner of circumstances that arise, with a claim. There's numerous perils. There are potentially hundreds of different coverages. All of those various exclusions come in various combinations. There's terms and conditions. So it's actually quite a feat. But what we can now do is take a policy and in literally sub-second, we can extract all the relevant clauses out of the policy documents. We can process those, vis-a-vis what actually caused the loss in the first place, and we're able to recommend a decision to a claim adjuster. I think what's important to say at this point is, I think there's a percentage of claims that you can, automate with little or no human intervention, but it's a very small portion. I don't think with particularly complex claims, you're going to be able to take humans out the loop. And in fact, you don't actually want to do that. Humans add value to the process. They're very good at communicating. They're very good at empathizing. They're good at all these sorts of functions. So it's a question of striking the perfect balance or the right balance between what the AI can do and what the humans can do. So make claim decisions,
it's essentially like orchestration between kind of what technology does and what, as John said, humans do really well. And maybe just to kind of carry on to, John's train of thinking there, obviously he's explained, the various machine learning, artificial intelligence technologies we use, but also at the heart of our system, we have what's called business process management, so a claim starts with an application form. And at the end of that process, hopefully it ends with a payout. But you need some pretty sophisticated technology to actually manage that process and kind of the various outcomes that a particular claim may have. So I think that's also, one of the critical key pieces of technology that we've kind of integrated with the artificial intelligence technology. And then, obviously, insurance is it's quite an old industry. You'll see that a lot of those systems are kind of hung together with, sticky tape and chewing gum. Some of those mainframe systems are kind of like 20, 30 years old. And I think one of the other differentiators, in terms of Tautona is that we also have our own proprietary robotics process automation technology. So on many of those systems, there are no APIs available to access those policy information systems. And then at the end of the process to write everything back into the claims management system. So we also have an ability to kind of, deploy our RPA technology to extract information out of those systems and then also update them towards the end of the process.
Because I was going to say that I was going to find out where you plug in really, because I think we spoke before, didn't we? And I shared with you that because I was going to have to do one for my claims brothers and sisters out there, because I used to work in claims and I spent most of my career at this early part recruiting into it. And I think it's what it was nice to hear is you're giving basically a better toolkit to claims professionals to kind of do their role, and also you're keeping them away from the stuff that doesn't really need human intervention. You need experts involved when it's complex, and it sounds like you're basically highlighting the issues that need to be looked at by a human.
Right,
yeah. But what I wanted to talk about as well is do you think it speaks to fairness? Because there's definitely a trend in insurance at the moment to say, let's be honest, even with businesses, they buy insurance that they don't necessarily understand. And I think the pandemic has obviously shown that. When you've got an AI tool that is kind of, it feels like it's a more even playing field, like both sides understand the legalese, it's a route through. that both sides kind of share, because I think one of the challenges is that you're essentially, if you're a claimant, there's you as a claimant, non-insurance professional, not versus, but essentially on the other side of the fence is an insurance professional that knows the policy inside out. And it feels unfair. Whereas I think if you've got a kind of machine in the middle, kind of cutting through the legalese, as you put it, it seems a fairer way of doing things. And there's definitely a trend towards that, I think, in insurance.
Yeah, Alex, I'm in insurance and I still don't understand any of my policies. You know, I just submit a claim and start praying, essentially. But yeah, John, you were going to say?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely valid. I mean, these claims are, you know, incredibly complex, and they're even challenging, you know, for claim adjusters, you know, with perhaps even 20 years, you know, experience in the field. But what's happening in insurance now, there's a huge amount of focus on customer self-help or customer self-service. And what insurers are doing is investing, you know, large sums of money in creating a platform that allows their customers basically, you know, to engage with that platform and get answers to difficult questions. I mean, typically what happens, you know, in insurance, there's a large amount of effort goes into concluding the sale, and then effectively the insurer doesn't pay for the customer for 5 years until he has a claim, you know. And then, you know, those customers are having to deal with, you know, very outdated and arcane procedures where they're perhaps approaching a broker, a physical form gets attached, you know, attaching various documents in the form of perhaps photographs and invoices, and then these get, you know, scanned and emailed off to someone in the blue ether. Then they sit around waiting, and insurers are aware of that, and they're trying to engineer that process. I mean, you know, just taking a glimpse into the future, I mean, how far away are we from an insurance type Siri product where a customer, effectively of an insurer, you know, can ask, you know, a piece of artificial intelligence software some very complex questions in a very simple and casual way and get a response? We're not that far away. I mean, using our NLU engine, there's no reason why, you know, an insured party couldn't engage with the bot, you know, and have very complex questions answered, or even, you know, scenarios contemplated. You know, I don't think we're that far away. So, I mean, I think your hypothesis is correct, Alex.
Yeah, and maybe just to add to that, I mean, I completely agree that, you know, AI and using machines to kind of automate and process claims definitely kind of even out the playing field, because, you know, we're all just human, and, you know, humans have bias. You know, we wake up, you know, in the morning sometimes with the wrong foot out of the bed. And, you know, obviously when you review claims on those days, you know, it may have a different outcome, you know, depending on how tired you are, the bias, you know, what mood you're in. So, you know, obviously the nice thing about machines is they're super consistent, they work really fast, and they don't make mistakes. So I completely agree with what you were saying, Alex.
Yeah, because I mean, it was just from experience. I mean, I started as a grad and I worked one of the big insurers, and what would happen, you know, I'm old enough that they were on paper files, and they would come out and you would get repeat copies of that claim file sent from the broker to make sure it happened. 3 different people would go and set the claim up. There'd be 3 different reserves set. All these people had the same training and the same claim file, but they would view it slightly differently. You know, there was a nuance to that. It probably means I wasn't very good at my job. I appreciate that, but but it's, you know, with most systems, it's the human error is the thing. It's like cybersecurity, isn't it? Human error is the easiest route into any cybersecurity situation. Is almost always the weakness is the person. It's not the machine. So if we kind of limit that, the ability for that error to happen, then I think we're probably on the right path.
No, look, I mean, approving claims that should be declined is one thing, Alex, but declining claims that should be approved is entirely another, you know, which can to, you know, litigation and, you know, expending large amounts of money and all those sorts of things. So using technology to reduce that risk makes complete sense. But I just want to emphasize again, you know, our technology is not replacing claim adjusters. Sure. We have absolutely no ambition to do that. What we try and do is do the grind and, you know, present this information to claim adjusters so they can make, you know, correct decisions. I mean, there's reason why a claim adjuster, should be calculating a loss reserve amount. I mean, we've got access to 5 years worth of data. We have analyzed that data, and we're able to predict those amounts, within a 99%, accuracy, which is far higher than a human would. Why necessary for a claim adjuster to wade through perhaps 100-page policy documents, and extract out of those documents, what clauses apply, when a piece of software can actually do that for them. It's not going to make the decision, but what it's going to do is present effectively all these pieces of the puzzle, for the claim adjuster to connect. Having said that, for simple claims, and these are claims below a certain threshold, perhaps where, coverage issues are very simple. I can give an example of that. I mean, there could be a claim, for example, where the policy is outside of the policy period. Why would you, in that circumstance, wade through policy documents and send out a field adjuster and go through this whole process when we know upfront that claim is going to be declined? So that's the type of claim that would fall, into that simple category, where we know that, the damage was caused by a hailstorm. The client to that, the brokers said, it's a hailstorm, and we clearly see in the policy documents that there is a hail exclusion. At this point, we can get back to the client and say, unfortunately, your policy excludes hail. So this is what software is very, very good at. It's filtering out all of these claims, extracting all these simple claims out and processing them super quickly. And then with the complex claims, is extracting all the bits of information that's required to make this very difficult decision and presenting it basically to the claim adjuster in a very structured way. Now, interesting.
Yeah, so Ray, just to add on to what you were saying. So, I mean, what's quite interesting about the property space is that a lot of these straight-through processing claims, these non-complex claims, as John mentioned, don't actually happen, is because the actual process is broken. So if you look at the way that a current property or a US delegated authority property claim gets handled, the insured goes to his broker, the broker completes a application form, the application form goes to a TPA or a third-party administrator who has a delegated authority to actually process the claim on behalf of the insurer. They then start doing work, pulling reports, looking at, doing coverage analysis. They then send out the field adjuster. But once they've spent all the money, only then does it go to the actual insurer or the managing agent. And essentially, one of the key things we identified upfront is that, it doesn't help. You've got all this amazing technology, but if the flow of information is broken, you'll never actually get to proper straight-through processing. So, I mean, I think one of the key things that we've done is try and get that process right. So before actually appointing a TPA and an independent assessor and start running up charges, the claim must go from the broker into the managing agent or the insurer first. And at that stage, we can, do all the necessary checks, as John said. If something's not in a particular coverage period, or, if you're in a notice period, these are claims we can, categorically say, they shouldn't be processed. And we just, send a letter to the, the insured telling him that his claim has been denied, and we can close the claim file. So, process is as important as the actual technology itself. Yeah,
yeah. And you guys were involved in the Lloyds Lab previously, weren't you? Or not currently, previously?
Yeah, we were part of Lloyds Lab cohort number 3. They selected, I think, around about 130 insurtechs. Then they, I think, whittled it down to about 30. We had a shoot-up, which was really interesting. John and I had a lot of fun. And they ended up selecting 11 insurtechs. And what was quite interesting about the third cohort was that the focus was at the future of Lloyds. So, within, Lloyds, they've got this program called The Future at Lloyds. And it's essentially around bringing innovation and then, taking that operating expense from, I think, John, it's 46% down to 25%.
Yeah,
and
correct.
Within that program, they had a number of work streams. And obviously, one of the key work streams where you can save quite a bit of money was claims. So yeah, we actually, formed part of that claims work stream. It was an absolutely amazing experience. We got to meet, great people, other insurtechs. And then also it kind of, became the springboard for us to actually start selling our technology into the Lloyd's marketplace. We were very fortunate to be partnered up with an amazing managing agent there. We built a POC with them. Obviously we're focusing on kind of P&C and property. So we built a delegated authority property claims automation system.
Yep.
And we're actually in the process now of taking that into a proper rollout, taking the system live with them.
Well, that was what I was going to say. How does it work with the kind of Lloyd's market? Is it attributable to Lloyd's? Obviously, having known that you were in the Lloyd's Lab, I assumed it was. But I know one of the things people have said about the Lloyd's Lab is it's really useful for getting feedback, and essentially, you've got end user feedback and access. What was kind of some of the feedback, and clearly it's kind of been involved in some of the products. Did it change some of the products, or was it just it was a different way of looking at maybe how you might adopt the product for different markets?
John, do you want to grab that one?
Yes, no, absolutely. I think it definitely lifted our horizons in terms of what's possible. It also basically brought to our attention some of the problems that insurers are facing, specifically, in the UK and the US. I mean, we are based in South Africa. We work with a lot of South African insurers. Insurance is the same, the world over, at least the principle is, but the implementations are different. So what this did is it gave us a good view of some of the problems that UK insurers are facing, particularly Lloyd's of London, and it also gave us exposure to that US market. We absolutely learnt a lot. We're super grateful, for that experience. But we're also viewed as a Lloyd's alumni. So, the management agents are aware that, only the best, insurtechs are selected, that you're having to go through a process of natural selection, if you like. And so we were shortlisted, and, the agents are aware of that. So it almost feels as if we have been pre-qualified by Lloyd's. I think, for myself and Philip to get on a plane, arrive in London and go knock at the door at Lloyd's and say, right, we want to do business with you, without having gone through Lloyd's Lab, would have been completely impossible. So it was a learning experience. It's opened up opportunities for us, and we value it enormously. And we're looking to build a relationship. We want to be doing business at Lloyd's in 10 years from now.
Yeah.
One thing I just want to kind of add to that. Sorry, Alex. John was saying it was a learning experience, and I will tell you that coming from a kind of a traditional insurance background and then going into the Lloyd's marketplace are absolutely chalk and cheese. That first week, which was kind of the introduction into kind of the marketplace. I often joke with people. I say to them it was like drinking from a fire hose, because it was literally information overload. Understanding TPAs, managing general agents. I mean, there's so many parties in the chain. So I mean, that was quite interesting for us to learn, but also to understand kind of where the inefficiencies are. So I think Lloyd's also look towards as John said, the alumni and the the participants in the cohort to kind of also try and identify some of the kind of the sweet spots for innovation, where the issues lie, and how they can actually be addressed.
Yeah, well, I mean, inefficiency, that's I just always laugh about the first time I walked into Lloyd's as a like recent grad, and just seeing the guys in the suitcases and going, oh, where are they going? They're like, nowhere. Let's just pay
up and down the escalator.
Yeah. And obviously it's moved on a great deal, but I think there's so much mileage. And I was going to ask you, obviously this technology that you've got could be applied to different parts of the insurance chain. It doesn't have to be applied to claims. Why did you pick claims, or was there never any doubt? I mean, my sort of initial thought was there's so many moving parts in claims that it's the sort of best use case of it. But are there any kind of other points you could use?
Can I grab that one, John?
Yes, you may. Yeah, certainly.
Sure. So like, at the end of the day, like, insurance policy is essentially like a promise to pay. But when you look at a lot of insurtechs that get funded in the market at the moment, they kind of focus on the downstream customer focusing stuff. There's a lot of apps out there, a lot of stuff around underwriting, bringing customers on board quickly, as John said, so a lot of focus is actually spent on that. But, I always joke with people and I say to them that that engine room, the claims engine room at the back, is almost seen like a red-headed ugly stepchild, you know. And you know, at the end of the day, it's a cost center, and not a lot of innovation dollars actually go into that area. And if you look at kind of, you know, large gross written premiums, you know, across the multiple lines of business, depending on whether it's life insurance, P&C, or kind of health, anything between 50 and I would say 90% of that gross written premium actually gets paid out in claims.
Sure.
So, you know, what's been fantastic is that, you know, we found this little area where nobody's actually, you know, paying a lot of attention. It's kind of back office, you know, stuff. And we find ourselves a nice little niche there to actually innovate and you know, bring some technology to the market. And it's been really, really well received.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you know, sort of harking back to my experience. So, I mean, I've been doing executive search for 15 years, and for the first 7, I did almost exclusively claims. And one of the big conundrums was why quite often is the board without a member of the claims team. You know, the chief claims officer is not always on the board. And I've posed that question a few times, because if you can save money on a claim, if you handle a claim effectively, it's pure dollars in the bank. I mean, it's pure money.
Go straight to the bottom line.
It absolutely is. I mean, you're absolutely right, Alex. And just a couple of additional thoughts on that. You know, the claims process is a major differentiator. It's generally a super powerful trigger for, you know, customers to switch to another insurer. If they get a bad claim experience, it's likely that they will switch, you know, to another insurer. And insurers are, you know, aware of this and are now focusing on re-engineering claims processes. So you know, it's not difficult for us to sell our solutions. You know, we're knocking on open doors. You know, all the insurers realize how important, you know, claims is. You know, they want to save money. They also want to improve the experience for their partners as well as their customers. I mean, it's quite interesting. We haven't discussed this. I'm not sure if you want me to share my screen or that's appropriate or inappropriate for this podcast. I can actually show you what one of these claims processes looks like and get some idea of timeframes, you know?
Let's do it.
Let's
maybe while you're sharing your screen, you know, just to cotton on to what John was saying, you know, we actually have an insurer here in South Africa where we took a claims process that used to take effectively 2 days, and we're doing it in 2.5 minutes. Yeah. And they actually put out a big billboard on one of the interstates saying, you know, we actually process claims in 2.5 minutes. So, you know, it's actually something you can, you know, kind of, you know, take above the line, and it's definitely a draw plaster for customers.
I mean, one thing that harks back to me, I used to say this all the time, and people sort of think I don't understand. And it's always quite funny for me because I used to work in claims. And I said, if I buy insurance on a personal level, and that claim process is brilliant, you know, like Tesco, for example, I think they were quite early on, take photos of your car, send it to us, and we'll make some claims assessments. If you buy commercial insurance, even if you're the same person, you still can't help but have a hangover of going, this experience of my personal lines insurer is better than my commercial insurer. And my commercial insurer is more expensive. And I think people can't help but draw parallels. It doesn't matter that we know that they're different processes. You've got to kind of, I think as the insurer, it's incumbent upon you to go, well, why is that? Can we do it?
You know, a claim is a claim, you know.
Sorry, someone's knocking at my door. The glamorous world of podcasting. Give me 1 second.
All good. No problem. Go pick up.
Yeah, sorry, as I was saying before we got rudely interrupted by the postman, I think that's it. I think people are people, and their experience of claims is the same whether if they look at personal lines claims, go, this is easy. And the other thing is, if you can sell a policy to someone in minutes, I feel like therefore you're setting the bar, like you're setting the kind of experience bar of going, well, it's all electronic, it's all easy, it's all quick. Now, of course, a claim is usually going to take longer than kind of buying the policy, especially if it's kind of off the shelf. But that should be, for me, that's the goal. The goal should be the experience should be as good at the front end as the back end.
I think that's kind of one of, if you look at like Lemonade in the US, you know, also focusing on P&C, I think that's one of their key value propositions. You know, it's like, you know, the products are simple. It's really easy to sign up. And, you know, because they've kind of built straight through processing and kind of automated claims into their kind of technology stack and value proposition from day one, you know, that's what's actually getting signed or sold to customers, and that's why, you know, they're such a big success story.
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously, traditional insurers have a long way to go to get there, and essentially that's where we come in, and we're hoping to kind of, you know, assist with that particular building block in their business.
Okay, cool, man. So you can see my screen, hopefully.
Yes.
This gives you some indication of the complexity of a property process. What I can tell you is, on average, Alex, it takes 3 months basically to finalize a property claim and settle that with an insured party. What we're saying is, using all this technology down the right-hand side over here, for probably 30 to 35% of those claims, we can pretty much settle in 5 minutes. So we're going here from pretty much 3 months down to 5 minutes for 30 or 35% of those claims. On average, we can cut the elapsed time and we can cut the costs by around about 50%. Now, I'm not at liberty to disclose how much it costs to process these claims, but what I will say to you is it runs into the thousands of dollars, thousands. And, you know, insurers have been unable to reduce that administrative cost per policy or cost per claim, like many other industries have done. I mean, I think other industries have been able to reduce their administrative cost by around about 50%, but insurers are unable to do that. And that's historically because, you know, you can't automate these activities. I mean, just looking at this process here, been able to, you know, identify what caused the damage, been able to estimate the loss reserve amounts, been able to validate terms and conditions, been able to check policy coverage, been able to select field adjuster, you know, being able to generate correspondence. All of these things actually require very, very expensive, very well-trained humans. And, you know, many of the people that work in this profession, you know, are graduate caliber people, and they're earning good salaries and doing a fantastic job. But for the time now, using all of this technology here, the robotic process automation, the optical character recognition, what's called named entity recognition, it's a technology associated with NLP, natural language understanding, etc., we're able to automate many of these tasks. And so there is substantial savings for the insurer. There's a massive improvement in terms of customer service and frustration with brokers and insured parties. And there's even the opportunity to delight, you know, a large number of people with turning claims around in literally 5 minutes, were previously taking many, many months to, you know, to process. So it's dramatic and it's exponential.
And I mean, one other thing we can probably add to this as well, which is really, really important, specifically from an insurer's, you know, value proposition perspective, is, you know, because you're using technology and machine learning and a range of artificial intelligence technologies, you also have an ability to catch fraud much better, you know. And there's, you know, as we said earlier about the human element, people making mistakes, there's finger faults. You know, essentially this technology also, you know, allows you to kind of, you know, identify outliers and fraudulent claims as well.
I think it's an interesting thing that you touched on, the human element as well. Talking about looking at that process, the thing that people enjoy about the claims world and tend to be is the big, exciting, complicated claims. What they don't like is they've always got too many claims on the go. They've always got too many. That's where the complaints come. Where I get people knocking on my door is saying, Alex, you know, or used to, Alex, I want a new role. Why? We're badly run. We've got too many claims per person. We can't spend the time on them. And the bit they enjoy is the complicated claims, which is where their knowledge and experience and skills are valuable.
Exactly correct.
And totally everything that isn't that is not a waste of time, but it's inefficient, as we know. What do you guys think about what's been done in the past? Has been largely losses under a certain amount, for example, have just been paid. You know, just you know, that's kind of like, I know.
That's cheating, Alex.
That's faux automation, right?
Exactly. Faux-mation.
Yeah.
No, but that's very dangerous. I mean, I don't see how you can do that without being able to actually calculate, you know, what the loss is. If that's a fire claim, Alex, I mean, you know, that could be effectively a $5 million claim. You know, could be just a small fire in the basement that perhaps, you know, damaged the wallpaper. So before you can just pay a claim, you know, particularly a property claim, there's a process. You know, you need to understand, you know, is there coverage? You know, what is the estimated? You have to get into a situation where, you know, you're getting inputs from field adjusters, you know, invoices and estimates are obtained. You know, it's actually not possible to do that in the property space. It's not be done. Like you could do it in South Africa. They do it with funeral claims. I won't mention who the insurer is, but with funeral claims, there's a very, very large insurer here that simply just pays the claim. But these are fairly small loss amounts. You know, sometimes running into maybe, you know, $1,000 or $5,000. They're relatively small amounts of money. But when you're dealing with homeowner or even commercial property, you know, without understanding, you know, the loss, the damage, the coverage, these types of issues, that would be impossible to do.
You know, but also doing that formation where you say anything under a particular amount, just pay it. I mean, I've seen insurers that, you know, let's say there's a really big hailstorm in Johannesburg and they get like flooded with, let's say, 30,000 claims. I mean, the call center is going absolutely berserk. Essentially what they do is they just approve anything under, you know, X amount. Yeah. But I mean, essentially, as an insurer, that opens you up to fraud and, you know, fraudulent claims. So, I mean, it's definitely not the right way to go.
No, of course. And, you know, and that ultimately gets passed on to the customer because it's
exactly
inherent in your costs. So, conscious of your guys' time, but what I'd like to kind of know from you guys about, obviously, yeah, where's the business now? It sounds really exciting. Obviously, been through Lloyds Lab as a cohort, moving into kind of different spaces. What's happening for 2021 for you guys? Where are you positioned? Hopefully 2021 is better than 2020 in terms of a lifestyle thing. But yeah,
that won't be too difficult.
yeah.
I want to answer that question. I'm thinking.
Yeah. But what's next for you guys?
Yeah, you know, aggressively expanding into the US market,
Right.
Alex. You know, that's where we want to go next. You know, it's an enormous market. The P&C is around about 1.2 trillion US. Just homeowner and commercial multiple peril is around about 250 billion in gross written premium per annum. You know, there's about 180 million, you know, residential and commercial properties, you know, in the US. You know, 5% of that population filed a claim per annum. So there's somewhere between 6 and 8 million of these claims. And, you know, we have technology that can substantially cut those costs, improve customer experience. And we want to work with as many US insurers, you know, as possible. So, you know, our focus for 2020 and beyond is effectively the US market. You know, that's the market we believe we can add the most value to all stakeholders in the value chain, including customers, brokers, as well as, you know, big insurers. Philip?
No, I mean, I think you said it all. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. Just conquer the US then. No big plans for next year.
No big plans. Exactly.
I'll tell you something. If we can just get a few crumbs that fall off that US table, we'll be enormously happy. I mean, it's an enormous, you know, market. You know, very, very focused on homeowner and commercial multiple peril. And, you know, if we can work with, you know, 5 or 10 large insurers, you know, next year and add value to their business, we'd absolutely love to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And where's the best place for people to catch you on via the website? If anyone wants to reach out and speak to you chaps directly, contact details.
Absolutely. So, you know, our details are obviously on the website, and then also on LinkedIn is probably, I think, the best place to actually get hold of us.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I think that's the way I do it. So
absolutely. That's how we met.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, gents, thank you so much for being part of it. It was it's so funny. It was a bit of a walk down memory lane for me because yeah, claims is where it all started for me, and it's so obvious for me the opportunities because there's just so many elements to the chain, and if you can make that sort of change shorter, if you can make the experience better, you're onto something. And I think I shared with you, one of my previous guests was like, if we were doing it all again, I'd do claims.
Yeah, he must be a masochist, Alex.
Yeah. But because the opportunities are so big, and I think you're right, I think it's a bit neglected. So look, I wish you chaps all the best, and thank you so much for being guests. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having us on, Alex. We really appreciate it.
No, great podcast, great show, great conversation. Appreciate the invite. Thank you so much, Alex.
No, thank you.